I'm joined now by Dr. David Norman, curator of the Sedgwick Museum at the University of Cambridge. He's here to talk about the new revelation that dinosaurs may have danced during their mating rituals. Thank you very much for joining us, David.
My pleasure.
So where does this idea of dancing dinosaurs come from?
There's quite a long history associated with this, and it's to do with understanding that dinosaurs show some evidence of bird-like behaviour. And that's come out of the fossil record, which in a sense dates back to the 1920s. At that time, an expedition went out to Mongolia, and one of the revelations, one of the exciting discoveries, was the first dinosaur eggs. And they found clusters of these in what appeared to be little scoop-shaped depressions, which clearly suggested they were dinosaur nests. So there's a lot of excitement about that. And it was, in a sense, well, yes, dinosaurs laid eggs, so what? But it was exciting. That then went rather quiet for the next 50 or more years, because it wasn't really until the 1970s that the whole business of egg laying and maybe the behaviour of dinosaurs started to reassert itself. Some new discoveries were made in Montana in North America by a colleague of mine called Jack Horner, and he discovered broken fragments of egg shell and also bones of what appeared to be juvenile dinosaurs. And these were scattered in a relatively confined area in Montana. And they started to excavate the area more completely and discovered that there appeared to be sort of these circular depressions with rims around the edge. And in some of these they found intact eggs. And it's almost, like having an egg for breakfast. You could tap some of these eggs and open them up and actually find the remains of some of the embryo dinosaurs growing inside. And this really sparked a lot more interest because they weren't just eggs, they were actually indications of the youngsters that were associated with these nests. And Jack and colleagues noted a number of really important things. One is that these nest sites seem to be very dense. So there seemed to be a lot of nests in a relatively confined area. And being geologists, they were excavating. When they dug down through the sediment, they found more nests underneath the ones at the surface. And they could combine that into two rather interesting behavioural observations, which is that the nests all seem to be clustered together. So that suggests that there was sort of like colonial nesting behaviour. The groups of dinosaurs were nesting in the same area, rather like a colony of birds nesting in the same area. And also, if you take the fact that the nests could be found in rocks underneath the immediate nests at the top, that these nests must have been made repeatedly over the years. So this is perhaps an indication not only that dinosaurs are nesting colonially, but also that they come back to the same site. So you have sort of repetitions of this behaviour. So rather like colonial birds that come back to the same island or rock area and go through their nesting procedures, so it was with dinosaurs. So this connection with bird-like behaviour and some dinosaurs became more and more reinforced. It gave us quite a lot more insight into the behaviour of dinosaurs. And one other rather intriguing component of that was that there seemed to be two nesting strategies. One is love them and leave them, in a sense that the females would simply lay eggs and abandon them. And the youngsters would emerge from the eggs as fully formed miniatures that would then scamper off and make their own way of life. And others clearly showed evidence that the youngsters emerged from the eggs but were immature. There was the so-called altricial condition. So they stayed sort of nest bound, and mum and dad sort of brought food back to the nest site. This allowed the youngsters to grow, become mature, and then when they reached sort of the proper rearing age, they would then make their own lives. So again, more and more bird-like hints of bird-like behaviour.
So what is this new discovery that's been made out in Colorado?
Yeah, this is just adding another layer to the levels of interpretation, because some colleagues who work out of Denver have Martin Lockley in particular, a good friend of mine, has been excavating lots and lots of track sites. So he's very familiar with tracks and footprints left by dinosaurs. Some of these sites he's reinvestigated and then discovered some more. And these aren't simple sort of footprint trackways, which are quite easy to spot. These have much more like earth-moving structures. They seem to find very large scoops in the earth, which are about 2 meters wide. And they could see scratch marks around the edges of the scoops that were left. And you could see the mounds of earth sort of dug up by the sides. And the question was, what on earth are these? They seem to show the scratch marks of feet that have dug these holes. What could that be for? And then this sort of dawning light of recognition. Gosh, this looks a little bit like the leks that you see associated with bird behavior and the mating rituals that go on with some birds, because they often create an arena and perform in that arena in order to attract a suitable mate. So you get males competing for the attention of a particular female. And that can either be all sorts of flamboyant behavior, or it can be things like creating scoops and structures and then using that as a sort of an arena for performing. And the most reasonable interpretation appeared to be this is a lek. This is actually dinosaurs going through their mating rituals prior to breeding. And you could initially think, no, this is just a weird sedimentary structure. It's just a one-off. You're over-interpreting that. But Martin and colleagues have found a number of these sites scattered around Colorado. So this isn't a one-off. This is a repeated sort of observation. And I think the most plausible and reasonable sort of interpretation of this is that it was an arena. These are structures that were left by dinosaurs that were behaving, and they were behaving as part of a mating ritual prior to breeding. The frustrating thing is you've got the arena, but you don't actually find the nest site next door. So that would be the next stage in the discovery maybe, but at the moment we haven't got any of that.
Because where would you take the research next?
I don't know. I didn't expect this sort of sedimentary structure to be discovered. I didn't think that these sorts of things would be discovered, and I think there's an element of serendipity about this. You don't know what's going to be discovered next. You don't know what other insights you might get into the behavior. These are classic trace fossils. They're remnants of the behavior of a once living animal. And the chances of discovering those sorts of things are quite remote. But here we have some examples, and this is the sort of interpretation I just thought, I'd love to know what was going to come next. I'd have great foresight if I could, but I don't.
Because what are some of the things we've been able to tell already about from dinosaurs, from other things besides bones?
Well, there are all sorts of things sort of associated with feeding behaviours, for example. There's evidence left in the form of vegetation, scars on vegetation. There are evidence of scars on bones, which suggests that carnivorous dinosaurs have been eating other dinosaurs, for example, and leaving scratch marks from their teeth on the surface of bones. There's evidence of what you last ate. Sometimes the digestive tract, the gut, is preserved associated with some dinosaurs if you get the right sort of taphonomic conditions, and that can tell you what the last meal of that particular dinosaur was. So there are a whole range of possible discoveries. You can even discover aspects of their growth and behaviour simply by sectioning bones. By looking at very thin sections of bones, you can see the rate at which dinosaurs grew, and you can even tell when they were coming into breeding condition and whether it was a male or a female. So there are many and various ways in which we can get insights, and it's sort of moving away from simply thinking of dinosaurs as interesting skeletal structures and thinking more almost like a forensic scientist might. You have the remains of a dead animal or organism of some sort, What different scientific disciplines can you bring to it in order to understand how it might have looked, behaved and responded when it was alive? And it's the interest really is drawing these different scientific disciplines in to the solution of the problems presented by that extraordinary discovery that you've originally made.
Because how sure can we be when making these theories about behaviour? How much guesswork is involved, I guess?
It's comparative guesswork. In this case, the scoop-shaped depressions have very sharp claw-like impressions left around the scoops. So the animal had very sharp claws on its feet. The style of animal and the size of animal would correspond to an animal which we would call a theropod. And theropods include things like Tyrannosaurus and Deinonychus and things like that, quite well-known sorts of dinosaurs. And the intriguing thing about those is of all the dinosaurs, those are the closest to living birds in terms of their anatomy, and I think now we can say their behaviour. So they're showing that bird-like characteristics that we see as normal amongst birds today can be traced back into their lineal ancestors, into that particular group of dinosaurs. So it's a matter of just drawing this information together from what we understand today and using that to inform what we see in the past.
Well, thank you very much for your time, David.
It's a pleasure.